This is the OnePlus Nord N10 5G, and it's a mouthful to say. It's one of 3 OnePlus Nord phones, and this sits in the middle for £330. The lower tier one is called N100, and the normal one is just OnePlus Nord. After the unboxing we will see if this phone is worth £330, or you should probably spend a little more and get the OnePlus Nord instead. On with the unboxing. So the box itself is black and it has the N10 branding. I'll admit that it looks pretty cool. It says the N10 3 times. Inside you get the leaflets and all the terms and conditions. Unfortunately there's no OnePlus stickers and there's no case inside the phone, which I would have liked. I would have liked sticking the OnePlus stickers everywhere around my house. Below that you've got the phone itself, which looks pretty cool. And below that you've got the Warp Charge 30T, along with the red OnePlus cable. The cable itself is USB-A to USB-C, so it's not one of the new chargers with the OnePlus 8 where you have the USB-C to USB-C, so it's the older fashioned type. Build quality. The phone, you might have guessed it's a glass back, it's a metal frame phone, it's premium. No, none of that is true. So the back is actually made out of plastic and the frame itself is not metal but it's plastic as well. And the buttons are plastic. So because it's made out of plastic and almost everything is plastic, it's really lightweight, and it's not a heavy phone or a chunky phone to carry around, and it's you can put it in your pocket and it's not really heavy and you won't notice it much. On the back you've got this cool glossy funky design, so it reflects to the sun, it reflects to any source of light, and it basically shimmers it, and I think it looks pretty cool. Although it does look pretty cool, since it's a glossy design, it does get fingerprinty. I would say after holding it for 10 minutes, if you got oily hands, if you got dirty hands, you can definitely see it, and I would recommend you put a skin or a transparent case on it. This phone has NFC, so you can use Google Pay or whatever payment service you have in your country. But it doesn't have wireless charging despite it having the plastic back. Plastic back phones such as the normal Galaxy Note 20 has wireless charging, so they could have added it if they wanted to, but unfortunately they didn't. On the back there is a sharp camera bump. It's around the size of a penny. If you put it on the table you would definitely notice it rocking around, but if you put a case on it or something, then it should even it out. The phone itself is grippy and it's pretty comfortable to hold because the back plastic itself, it does curve in. So when you're holding it, it does curve around your hands and it feels nice to hold. The phone doesn't support eSIM if you're wondering, and it also doesn't have an official IP rating. I've noticed this when I was opening the SIM tray to put in my SIM, and it was extremely easy to open and it was kinda loose. That's when I realized it had no rubber seal around it. After doing some research I found out that it's not water resistant, so don't try to splash it with water, keep it safe. The only colour I was able to find in the UK with this phone is the Midnight Ice, also known as really dark blue. So it does have this funky design, and this is pretty much the only colour that they are offering. I wish they'd done more colours like white or green or yellow, something more funky would have been nice. The authentication methods for this phone, it has a quick fingerprint scanner. Fingerprint sensor itself is extremely fast, I just tap my finger on it and the screen is on. It also has face unlock, which works perfectly. I've also noticed that since we're in a pandemic and you have to wear masks and everything, I've noticed that the face unlock still works even if you're wearing a mask, which is pretty cool. But it might compromise safety if you're concerned about that. One thing that I'm disappointed with this phone is with OnePlus flagships, you get this thing called the alert slider on the left side. So it's a physical button which you can slide up or down to put it in sound mode, vibrate mode or mute mode. I wish this phone had this feature, but unfortunately they decided to skip on that. The display is a 90Hz refresh rate and it has a punch hole camera on the top left corner. This phone doesn't have OLED screen, but it has an IPS LCD display, but it's fine because the phone is like £330. Unfortunately, I wish this phone came with a screen protector. On OnePlus flagship phones, they put a pre-applied screen protector for you, and that's a nice touch. I wish they put a screen protector on this phone, but unfortunately they didn't. The bottom chin is about the size of the OnePlus 5T's chin. Maybe it looks a bit bigger because it has more aggressive rounded corners compared to the OnePlus 5T. The display is a full HD display, and it's around the size of 6.49 inch with 405 ppi, and it supports sRGB. It's a 20:9 aspect ratio, and I've noticed that when I'm watching TikTok content, some of the text are cut off on the left and right hand corner. I'll put it up on the screen right now. I'm not sure if it's related to the TikTok app or it's because of this refresh rate. It's a flat display, it's not curved or anything like that like, you know, OnePlus flagship phones, and it's using a 2.5D Gorilla Glass 3 protection, which again is decent for the price you're paying. This phone is great for watching YouTube and Netflix because it has a big screen. It does have a 6.49 inch, but I'm gonna say 6.5 because it's easier to say. So yeah, it is great for watching YouTube and Netflix because, you know, it's a 6.5 inch display. It's pretty big, it's pretty large, and it's nice to watch content on it. And it's also good for gaming because it's a pretty good size. You know, you can put your left and right hand, and you've still got plenty of space to, you know, press the buttons on a game like PUBG or Call of Duty Mobile. The screen does get pretty bright, and the screen is visible and bright outdoors in sunny conditions. One thing I've noticed is on the top left hand corner where the punch hole camera is, there's a kind of a black smear near it. I'll try to take a footage of it, but you can't really see it on camera. If you look at the bottom of the punch hole camera, there's a little black smear near it. It's kind of dimmed out around the bottom of the punch hole camera. I'm not sure if this is an issue with all OnePlus N10 phones or if I have a defective model. The speakers are really good. It does have a stereo speaker setup, and the speaker quality itself is good. It's good for listening to Netflix, it's good for listening to music, Spotify. It does get pretty loud, and I've tested the Pixel 5 around a month ago, and I'll say that this phone beats the Pixel 5 sound loudness. It does get pretty loud. If you look at the bottom, it does have a headphone jack. I mean, it's 2020 and we have a headphone jack on phones now. It's a pretty incredible feature. It's kind of revolutionary. It's, you know, courageous. The phone doesn't have Dolby Atmos like the flagship OnePlus phones, and it also doesn't have equalizer settings. What I've noticed is that instead of it having Dolby Atmos sound, it uses some Walmart rip-off version, and it's called Dirac Audio Tuner. It does get the job done, I guess, but it doesn't really have the option to change the bass. It doesn't have the option to, you know, change the treble or, you know, move it to jazz, R&B. There's no equalizer setting on this phone. There is only one storage configuration that I could find. It's 128GB UFS 2.1 storage. However, thankfully you're not locked to 125GB. You can expand the storage up to 512, which is quite generous. There is only one RAM configuration for this phone, and it is the LPDDR4X 6GB of RAM, which is kind of average for the price. In my day-to-day experience, I feel like 6GB of RAM is fine. It's not, you know, 8GB or it's not 12GB, but for £330, I honestly can't complain. I'm able to have around 6 lightweight apps in the background before they start to refresh. But if you open PUBG or Call of Duty Mobile, then expect your apps to refresh, every single one of them. The processor is a mid-range 8nm Snapdragon 690, and I think the equivalent Snapdragon is the Snapdragon 765G. They're pretty similar chipsets. This processor supports Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. I'm going to talk about the phone experience, whether it's laggy or if it's fast, when I talk about the software experience. It uses the Adreno 619L GPU, and it's able to play lightweight apps such as, you know, Among Us or Candy Crush. If you play Candy Crush, I'm not going to judge you. It does play lightweight games pretty good. For heavy games such as PUBG Mobile, if you put it on low graphics, you are able to unlock 40 FPS. Yeah, it's not 60 FPS, but it is playable. This chipset for £330 it's pretty mind-boggling, if I'm being honest. It has 5G for £330. I think that is a bargain. If you want 5G, then I'll just get this phone just for 5G. It doesn't support millimeter wave 5G, but it's not like you're gonna get millimeter wave every single place you go. It's mostly gonna be sub 6 5G. In the UK, we don't even have millimeter wave 5G because, I don't know, the regulations or something like that. So yeah, I'll talk about the day-to-day experience with the Snapdragon 690 later on when I talk about the software experience. This phone has a 4300 mAh battery. And I've been using this phone for about a week now, and I have to say that the battery life is extremely good. I'm able to get 1 day's worth of battery when I'm using it heavily, or I'm able to squeeze 2 days worth of battery if I'm being really careful, you know, using social media apps and making sure not to play PUBG Mobile or, you know, open the camera or something like that. So I'm able to get 2 days if I'm really careful with it. I'm getting around 6 hours of screen on time, or sometimes more, you know, sometimes I get 6.5 hours, almost 7 hours of screen on time, and it's really good. And this is around heavy usage days. When I mean heavy usage, I mean, you know, Netflix binging, YouTube binging, watching TikTok all day. That's why the screen on time is really high. And another thing I have to mention is that I'm testing the battery with 90Hz enabled, which is really impressive. If I were to put 60Hz on, I'll probably easily get 2 days worth of battery. For charging, it does support the Warp Charge 30T, and it does come inside the box. Thankfully, you know, with the iPhone 12 you don't get the charger inside the box. It delivers up to 30 watts of powers, and I've noticed that this phone supports USB power delivery, because I've got a Samsung 25 watt charger in my house. I've plugged it in and it says it's charging rapidly. So I assume that this phone supports USB power delivery, which is pretty cool. So this phone has 4 cameras. It has 64 megapixel main primary camera without optical image stabilization. It only has EIS, electronic image stabilization, when you're filming videos. The second camera is the 109-degree field of view 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera lens. There's 2 other cameras left which I don't even want to talk about. It has a 2 megapixel macro camera and it has a 2 megapixel monochrome camera. I mean, I don't even want to talk about this because, if I'm being honest, who is going to use these 2 cameras in their day-to-day experience? No one's going to use the macro camera, no one's going to use the monochrome camera, almost no one's going to use it. They add these 2 sensors just because, you know, they want to advertise, oh, we have 4 cameras on this phone, it's the best phone. Like, I just wish they just got rid of these 2 cameras and focused on something else, but I'll talk about that at the end of the video. The primary back camera does shoot in 16 megapixel by default, or you can switch it to 64 megapixel. Do notice that when you close the camera app and you go back on it, it will go from 64 to 16 megapixel mode. I'm not sure why it does this. It does shoot up to 4K 30 FPS video recording. Sadly, it doesn't support 4K 60 FPS. I think it's because of the limitations of the Snapdragon 690. The selfie camera is a 16 megapixel camera and it records up to 1080p 60 fps. Thankfully, it does record in 720p 240 fps for slow motion, or you can bump it up to 1080p but get 120 fps slow motion recording. Speaking about the images, they're quite good in bright conditions. The image processing, you know, isn't the best. The images don't look vivid as the Pixel or Samsung photos. And it doesn't have OIS, so if you have shaky hands or if you're, you know, running or walking, the photos can turn out blurry and it does look quite bad. The ultra-wide camera, it doesn't look as good as the primary camera, it doesn't look as vivid as the primary camera, and overall it's not, you know, on the same level as the primary camera. I just wish that they didn't include the macro and the monochrome sensor, because if they took those cameras outright and they budgeted it, is that even a word? If they put the budget towards the primary camera and, I don't know, make it better by putting OIS or make the ultra-wide camera better, that would have been so much more appreciative than, you know, just putting in useless cameras and, you know, just saying, oh look, we have 4 cameras, it's, you know, we have so much camera. Like, it's just gimmicky and it's just a marketing tactic.
Earlier that week, basically,
White Hart Lane.
My best friend was giving gold. I think it's bad. He got there, and he's very, very good. The gold seat to the band that I said, we know that. People used to like leave it up, but he has like autism as well, and I didn't want him to get hit, and then I couldn't see you know what I mean? But this has always stuck with me, like when he hit all of the people who do, it's about like 15 people, they were all like laughing their head off going, oh my god, and it's like, and I was when my pulse was started, I was like, what are you doing?
Empire Parade.
People, but they're my mates, but they're not, they're really fucked up. They're obviously not friends, that's what they're saying. And I think I spoke to his dad about it that week, I can't really remember. But, it's so horrible. Well, I've seen him recently, and obviously
About the software update, it's running Android 10 straight out of the box, and it's running Oxygen OS 10.5.7 at the time of recording. And I don't want to mention this because it's just embarrassing to say, but this phone will have one software update to Android 11. I'm serious, this is not a joke. You can't make this stuff up. Like, OnePlus, they used to be known for their, software updates, quick software updates, long-term software updates, things like this. It's just sad to see where OnePlus is heading for the future. It will only be updated to Android 11, and maybe you'll get minor software updates, but you won't get Android 12 or 13, It's pretty disappointing to see that. Alright, so let's talk about the software experience. Oxygen OS, the processor, Snapdragon 690, how it feels. So it does feel snappy and it feels pretty smooth, despite, it having a mid-range processor and it's running at 90Hz. The apps do launch quite quickly, considering that it's a mid-range processor. So when I'm opening lightweight apps like Twitter or Reddit, yeah, you do see the animation. Yeah, you do have to, wait a bit longer, but it does open quite fast. A thing I have to mention with this is that when you double press on the power button to open the camera, or just open the camera in general from the home screen, it doesn't open as quickly as, a flagship OnePlus phone. So by the time you open the camera, you might miss that moment. Also, another strange bug that I do have to mention is that when I'm swiping up and I quickly want to open another app, like, I'm on Twitter and I want to swipe up and go to settings, or I want to swipe up and go open YouTube or something, it doesn't let me open it. I have to press it twice. It's like I have to wait for the animation to finish and then I can open the app. I do have to mention that when I use the Pixel 5, which has the Snapdragon 765, it did feel more snappier, it did feel more consistent, more fluid, but I guess that makes sense because the Pixel 5 has pure stock Android, whereas Oxygen OS is known to have extra features here and there, and sometimes there is bloatware. Something that annoys me about Oxygen OS, and it might annoy you if you like dark mode, is that it doesn't have scheduled automatic dark mode. You have to go inside the app, you have to go into customization, you have to, go into the tones and then turn on dark mode. Whereas on the Samsung, it does have automatic dark mode and it uses Android 10's dark theme system. But unfortunately, this phone doesn't have that because it uses OnePlus's proprietary dark mode. And I just wish they just made the change to Android 10 dark mode. My favorite Oxygen OS feature is the app locker feature. You can essentially put a pin on any app you like. So, for example, the gallery app, you might have sensitive photos on there, or you might have, homework photos in there that you don't want family members looking at. You can put a pin, you can put a lock on that specific app or any other app like the YouTube app, anything. And when you try to open that app again, you have to either enter a pin or your fingerprint. Another thing I have to mention about Oxygen OS is the smooth screen rotation. When you're switching the screen rotation from landscape to portrait and constantly doing that, you do notice that it is pretty smooth. If I put it side by side to a Samsung, you'll notice that on Samsung it's a bit more laggy, it's a bit more choppier. And I appreciate that Oxygen OS, it does have pretty smooth screen rotations. And yeah, I'm getting so excited about screen rotations. I know, I'm living my best life right now. Another feature that I like from Oxygen OS is optimized charging, and I don't know why no other phones have this. As far as I'm aware, iPhone, OnePlus, Sony, Asus, and maybe some other do have optimized charging, and I think it's a pretty neat feature. Let me explain it real quick. Say you're the type of person to charge your phone overnight. Let's just say it goes to 100% by midnight or something. It has to keep hitting that 100% until you wake up. It could be 6-7 hours before you wake up, and it can be pretty bad for your battery health. What this feature does is basically you plug it in, it charges all the way up to around 80%, and it holds that charge. And say you wake up at, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning, just before you wake up, it will fill in that last 20% just before you wake up. And this is essentially a good feature because it will preserve your battery health and it will essentially make your battery last longer. And I wish more phones had this feature. Another feature this phone does have, well, OnePlus doesn't advertise this, you can get it yourself. You can download the OnePlus Diagnostic app, and within the app you have to use it for a few weeks, I think. It will show the battery health. On iPhones you've got this battery health, it tells you if your battery needs replacing. This phone does have this feature. So I think it's a pretty cool feature, and I just wish that other phones like Samsung, Huawei, Sony, they all had battery health features. I don't know why they don't bring it. So I do appreciate this feature a lot. The thing is, when this phone was launched, Android 11 already existed. The Pixel 5 came with Android 11 out of the box, but this phone, which came at a later date, doesn't have Android 11 out of the box. It just doesn't make sense, and I feel like they're ripping off consumers at this point. They'll update it to Android 11, and then they'll just leave you in the dark. If you have any software issues, if you have any bugs, they'll just forget you and they'll shove you to the side, and they don't care. If you put Samsung side by side, you get 3 years of software updates on the flagship phones and maybe the mid-range phones. I'm not sure because I didn't actually check. And you also get around 4 to 5 years of software updates. So recently the Galaxy Note 5, I don't even know when that phone released, it recently got a software update. The phone is £330, which I think, if I'm being honest, it is pretty reasonable. I think that the regular OnePlus Nord is a better value, but hear me out. It's a better value if you care about the camera experience. This phone doesn't have OIS, so your photos they'll look shaky. You have to be steady, and night mode photos, it will look shaky if you're not steady. Also, when you're recording video, it does look a bit artificial because it does use EIS, electronic image stabilization, and I feel like if you get the OnePlus Nord, you have an overall better photo quality. Also, the OnePlus Nord does have OLED display, and it still maintains that 90Hz display. So I feel like if you get the OnePlus Nord for an extra £50, if you can save up an extra £50, you can get essentially a better phone. You get an OLED display and you get a better camera experience. So should you get this phone, as I've mentioned, it is pretty reasonable for £330. but it doesn't have optical image stabilization, and you might want to upgrade to the OnePlus Nord instead for a better camera experience. It doesn't have wireless charging despite it having a plastic back. Like, how much does a wireless charger cost? What, $1, $5 to put in a smartphone? It does have quite a large chin in 2020. Because of the aggressive rounded corners, it makes it look more thicker than it actually is. But if you upgrade it, once again, if you shell out an extra £50 for the OnePlus Nord, it does look to have a more thinner chin. And also, I do have to mention this as my last point. No one mentions this. The vibration motor. The vibration motor on this phone is quite bad. I'm just being honest at this point. I've been spoiled by the iPhones, I've been spoiled by the Samsung, the OnePlus 8 haptic motors, you know, excellent vibration motors. They're instant, they're snappy, they're, you know, haptic-y. What else can I say? But this phone, it has a bad vibration motor. I just wish that, I know that people are going to complain that I'm repeating myself a lot, but I just wish that they got rid of the macro camera, the monochrome sensor, and instead invest in a better camera. Put OIS or something, or I don't know, make the ultra wide camera better. Or hear me out, right? Get rid of those two useless cameras that no one's ever going to use, right? And invest in a better haptic motor or something like that, you know? So tell me what you think about this phone. I think it's pretty good for £330. You might want to shell out an extra £50 and get the OnePlus Nord instead, which in my opinion I think has better value. And that was pretty much it for today's video. Yeah, I don't know what else to say from here. I guess bye.